Okay, last week we studied the different types of angle. So you should have a foldable that lists your different types of angles. And then on the inside of your foldable, you should have the description of each of those angles. It is very important that you go back and review this information. This is already information that you should know, but if not, we reviewed this information last week. Last week, we also talked about the angle relationships. So in your notes, you should have the angle relationships as they relate to two angles where the sum is 90 degrees or two angles that are 180 degrees. So you should have complementary, supplementary, same side interior and same side exterior. So you should know how two angles added to this from your notes. And then we looked at the angle relationships, those angles that are congruent. So you should have this information also in your notes. So that's just a quick review on what we did last week. Today, we're going to look at interior angles of triangles. So you should have this form. This is going to be your notes sheet. We're looking at the interior angles of triangles. So let's look at the interior angles of triangles. We know that the sum of the three interior angles in any triangle always equals 180 degrees. Okay. I want you to make sure you highlight interior sum 180. Very important. So we're going to use what you know about parallel lines that are cut by a transversal to help you prove this fact about the angle sum of triangles to be true. We have proof number one. Line A is parallel to line B. We have to prove that the sum of the interior angles in triangle CDE is 180 degrees. So, we have a proof. Okay, we have a diagram. We have facts, but it's most important that we have to explain this. And that's what it means by giving proof. Okay, you're using some evidence to prove that these angles, how these angles are related. The first question wants us to know the measurement of angle 1. What is it equal to? So, what I want you to do is, let's pretend, since we need to know this, okay, notice we're going to make a transversal that extends that angle 1. We're going to extend that transversal. Okay. And I do not want you to look at this information, so we're going to shade it out. Let's not look at that right now. Okay. It's better if you had white out. So now you can notice we do have those two parallel lines. Line A is parallel to line B, and they are cut by transversal. We know that lines that are parallel are equal distance apart and they never touch. Okay. Notice we did this as a whiteout, so we no longer see this transversal. So we need to know the measurement of angle 1. Remember the space on the inside of your parallel lines? This space is interior, while the outside is your exterior. So if we look at the relationship between angle 1 and 62 degrees, we know that angle 1 is equal to 62 degrees. Now, how do we know that angle 1 is equal to 62 degrees? We know that angle 1 and angle D, and this is angle D, and we just extended the transversal, it's still angle D. we know that they are alternate. Now, how do we know they're alternate? One angle is on the left side of the transversal. Angle 1 is on the left side. Angle D is on the right side of the transversal. So angle 1 and angle D are alternate interior angles, comma, therefore, let's put that a semicolon, comma, they are congruent. Okay. Now, if you go back to your notes, we talked about the angles that are congruent. So we have here alternate interior angles. They are congruent. So we know that the measurements are going to be equal to one another. Let's look at angle 3 now. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to erase this so we can go back and see where angle 3 is. And we need to find the measurement of angle 3. Okay? Here we have, again, line A is parallel to line B. But now we're looking at the measurement of angle C. Right here. So we know angle 1 is 62 degrees. We're trying to find the measurement of angle C. So we know that it is cut by transversal. And this is the transversal. If I can find a marker that works. Okay. I'm just extending. Okay. Angle 3 is going to be equal to 35 degrees. Now, how do we know angle 3 is equal to 35 degrees? This is angle E. Okay, it's 35 degrees. I just extended the transversal. Angle E is on the opposite side of angle 3. One is on the left side of the transversal, one is on the right, and they're alternating. One is at the bottom, one is at the top. So these are alternate interior angles. Therefore, we know they have the same measurement. If you forget, remember last week we talked about, well, let's look and see. When we learned in elementary school, we learned that this is an acute angle. If you look at this angle, it is also acute. So therefore, we can assume they are the same. So here we can say that angle 3 and angle E are alternate interior angles. Therefore, they are congruent. Okay. Now let's look at angle 2. We know that angle 1 is 62 degrees. We know that angle 3 is 35 degrees. So now we need to look at angle 2. Remember last week we discussed if you can take the 3 angles and they make a semicircle, okay, they're going to form what kind of line? A straight line. So we know that all 3 of these angles, the sum must be 180 degrees. We know the measurement of angle 1 is 62 degrees. We know the measurement of angle 3 is 35 degrees. So to find the measurement of angle 2, we're going to subtract 180 minus 62 degrees minus 35 degrees, and that will give us the measurement for angle 2. Again, we know that angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 is equal to 180 degrees because it forms a straight line. It's half of a circle. Okay? So we know that angle 1 is 62 degrees plus whatever the measurement of angle 2 plus the measurement of angle 3, which is 35 degrees, has to equal 180 degrees. So if we subtract 180 minus 62 minus 35, we know that angle 2 is going to be equal to 83 degrees. Now we can also use algebra. Notice I substituted in the values for angle 1. I substituted in the values for angle 3. If I add 62 and 35, the sum of those angles is 97 degrees. So 97 degrees plus angle 2 is 180 degrees. You're trying to find out the measurement of angle 2 by itself. So you're going to subtract 97 degrees from both sides. So then you know that angle 2 will equal 83 degrees. So now we have to put that in an explanation. Angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3 must equal 180 degrees. Now, how do you know they must equal 180 degrees? Because the three angles form a straight line. Prior knowledge tells us a straight line is 180 degrees. So we can conclude that the sum of the interior angles, interior, we know the prefix means inside, okay? The sum of the interior angles in a triangle is 180 degrees because by proving that angle 2, now I'm writing it a proof, so I'm using my words instead of my symbols. By proving that angle 2 measures 83 degrees, we can check the sum of the interior angles. So what are our interior angles? We're only looking at the angles that are inside the triangle. So our interior angle, 62 degrees, 35 degrees, and we found out that angle 2 is 83 degrees. If we add this, 62 plus 35 plus 83, so the measurement of angle, that is 62 degrees, 35 degrees, and 83 degrees is 180 degrees. Okay. So now we have proof 1. We are proving the sum of the interior angles. In proof 2, we have to prove that lines that we say are parallel are indeed parallel. So now let's move to proof 2. Remember, if you need to go back, you may slow down the video to go back, or you can change the setting of the video to slow it down at whatever speed you need to listen to. So now we're going to prove that line C is parallel to line D. Lines E and F are transversal. So we just can't assume it. So we're looking at, given that angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3, what is it equal to? Well, if I take and make an arc around these angles, I notice that it's going to form a straight line. So therefore, a straight line is 180 degrees. So the sum of these three angles have to be 180 degrees. The three angles form a straight line which equals 180 degrees. See, now we're not worrying about the actual degrees or measurements of these. They didn't give us any measurement to start off with, so it'd be hard for us to determine how many degrees is that. So now we're just looking at angle relationship. So now we need to look at angle 2. What is the measurement of angle 2? Well, I'm going to erase this so we can look at angle 2. Okay, cut by transversal. So now we know that angle 2 is going to be congruent to angle 4. Angle 2 is an acute angle. Angle 4 is an acute angle. They're on the inside of line C and line D. They're on the inside. Okay, so we know these are alternate interior angles. So angle 2 is equal to angle 3. Now, how do we know? I mean, not angle 3, my correction. This is angle 4. Please be sure to correct this. Angle 4. Angle 2 and angle 4 are alternate. One is on the left side of the transversal, one is on the right side of the transversal. So, angles 2 and 4 are alternate interior angles. Go back and look at your folders if you forget. Therefore, comma, the angles are congruent. Okay. And then now we're going to look at angle 1. What is it related to? So I'm going to erase this. So I can just look at the transversal that's cutting angle 1. So I'm looking at this transversal here. I'm looking at angle 1. And what is it congruent to? It sits on the left side of the transversal and it's above this parallel line, what we assume to be parallel. Angle 5 sits on the left side of the transversal and it's above this parallel line. So we call angle 1 and angle 5 corresponding angles. And we know from our formula that corresponding angles are congruent. So we can say angles 1 and 5 are corresponding angles therefore, comma, they are, we can say the angles. The angles are congruent. So now we want to give a conclusion. We know the sum of the interior angles in a triangle is 180 degrees because angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 equals 180 degrees. How do we know that? They form a straight line. Great, great. And we can replace angle 2 with angle 4. And replace angle 1 with angle 5. Then we know that angle 3 plus angle 4 plus angle 5 equals 180 degrees. If you need to slow the video down to get all your notes, please do so. Make sure you rewind and go back. Now, I want you to try the back side of your worksheet and then come back to check your answers.